Hey guys, this is Anthony Morganti from OnlinePhotographyTraining.com. Many of you know that recently I've been doing 4 different video series on 3 different products. One product is Luminar 2018, and I've been doing 2 different video series on Luminar. One is called Mastering Luminar 2018, and the other is called Luminar 2018 Tips and Tricks. The other program I've been working with is On1 Photo RAW 2018, and my video series on that is called Mastering On1 Photo RAW 2018. And finally, I've been working with Lightroom Classic CC, and my video series is called Mastering Lightroom Classic CC. I thought it would be interesting if maybe in the next 2 or 3 videos I talk about the differences between these 3 programs. Yes, they all process an image, but there are some different features and they do things slightly different. Maybe you'd like one feature of one program over that similar feature in a different program. We're going to jump right into it. The first thing is digital asset management. How does the program handle your images? Does it allow you to color label them, star rate them, edit metadata, add keywords, put them in specific locations on your hard drive, in specific folders, rename them, things like that? That's all digital asset management. Of course, in Lightroom, we have the library module, and in the library module, you could do all that. The one thing about the library module and Lightroom in general is you cannot work on an image until you import it into Lightroom. So you have to go through a formal import process to get the image into Lightroom before you could do any metadata edits, color labels, anything, even edit the image. You have to get it imported into Lightroom. Now, in On1 Photo RAW 2018, we have the Browse module, and the Browse module is very similar to Lightroom's library module. In the Browse module, you could do all that stuff too. You could edit metadata, color labels, star rate, add keywords, all that stuff. What a lot of people like about On1's Browse module over Lightroom's library module is in the Browse module, you don't have to formally import your image into On1. Just navigate to wherever it is. It could be on an SD card. Just navigate to the SD card and start editing your image. Now, you can go through a formal import process in On1, and when you do that, it catalogs the folder the image is in, or catalogs all the images. And when you catalog it, it does allow the image to render faster on your computer. All that metadata, keywords, and stuff load quicker. Also, when you do edits, the edits are cataloged with the image and cataloged in the actual On1 Photo RAW's catalog. So everything gets rendered quicker and less chance of something getting lost or messed up when you catalog. It's an option. You don't have to do it. Luminar 2018, as of this point in time, does not have any digital asset management module capabilities at all. You basically just load an image into it, edit it, and then save it. And wherever you saved it, you saved it. It doesn't remember it's there. Anything like that. It doesn't allow you the capability of editing any metadata, adding keywords, color labels, star ratings, none of that. Now, they claim that they're coming out, Skylum Software, who's the creator of Luminar 2018, claims that they're coming out with a digital asset management module in 2018. It still isn't out as of the creation of this video. When they do release it, I will do videos on it, and I'll talk about how it compares to both On1's Browse module and Lightroom's library module. The other thing that's a little different between the 3 programs is layers and layer masks. In Luminar, you have both. You could go in and actually even in a filter, let's say the saturation vibrance filter, click on this little brush, and you could add a radial mask or a gradient mask or a luminosity mask to the filter. It's called a filter mask. But you also could add another layer or more layers, more than one layer, and you could add layer masks. So you could have one layer with very specific adjustments done to it, then a second layer with different adjustments done to it, and you could use a mask to mask in or out the adjustments and combine basically the layers so that you have the adjustments from one layer with the adjustments of the second layer. And very powerful. Of course, they borrow that from Photoshop, very similar in how it works. On1 has similar functionality. We go to the effects module, and we could add a filter in the effects module. And let's say, for the sake of this demonstration, I'm just going to add dynamic contrast. And if I click right here, I get a mask, and I could mask out this filter adjustment from part of the image or mask it into another part of the image. So it's basically a filter mask. Very effective, and it works very similar to how Luminar's does, and it has a luminosity mask as well. Also, in On1 you have an entire layers module. Now we're getting a little more like Photoshop. So in that layers module you could do everything you could do, not everything, but you could do a lot of stuff you could do with layers in Photoshop. You could mask out part of one layer so it combines with another layer, like I mentioned in Luminar. You might have an image, let's say, that has it's a landscape image with a very boring sky, but you have another image that has a really exciting, intriguing sky. You could basically put those two images as layers in the layers module and mask out the bad sky so the good sky comes through. And there's a lot of tools to help you do that. Lightroom, on the other hand, doesn't have any layers capability at all. Now it does have some rudimentary masking capability. If we go over to the Develop module and we look across at the tools, first of all, in the Brush tool, there is an Auto Mask checkbox. And what that will do when you check it is when you click to draw a brush stroke, Lightroom will immediately sample the pixels directly below that brush, and it will try to only allow that brush to affect similar pixels, similar in tone and color. If you brush and you happen to go over a part that isn't that same tone or color, theoretically, it shouldn't affect it. It works sometimes, doesn't work sometimes. It's something that's kind of hit and miss, and it's been in Lightroom for a while. So you could try that. Now, the other thing it has is what Adobe calls range masks. And a range mask is available in the brush tool, the radial filter tool, and the gradient tool. So if I come in here and I draw a gradient on this image, you'll see this part becomes active down here. It's called a range mask. And if you click on there, there's two different kinds: a color range mask and a luminance range mask. One uses color to mask out part of this, in this case the gradient filter, from part of the image, and the other uses luminosity to mask out part. I'm not going to go into how they work because I do cover that in my Mastering Lightroom Classic CC video series. In this video I just want to talk about differences. Now, the masking that's in Luminar 2018 and in On1 Photo RAW 2018 is more typical masking that you would expect to find for those of you that are familiar with something like Photoshop. This range mask is kind of unique to Lightroom. A lot of people love it, a lot of people hate it. So it's something that you're going to have to practice with and see whether or not you like it or not. The other thing that is a little different between the three programs are the actual tools themselves. In Lightroom we have that brush tool, we have the radial filter tool, we have the gradient tool, we have a red eye removal tool, we have a spot removal tool, and we have a crop tool. All very straightforward tools, very easy to use. Over in On1, if you're in the effects module, you would just click on this local adjustments tab. It's also in the develop module, and it will default to a brush. And with the brush you have similar adjustments that you have in Lightroom. You could affect tonal values, sharpness values, and the color balance and things like that with the brush tool, radial filter, gradient tool in Lightroom. And similarly in On1 you could affect those same types of things. And also over here, if you go to the left, you have the crop tool, then we have that brush tool, we have the gradient filter tool. Now these next group of tools are all for the masks. So since Lightroom doesn't have masks, it doesn't have these type of tools, and those help you better apply and refine the mask you're using. Then below that we have tools that are similar to Lightroom's spot removal tool. We have a perfect eraser, we have the retouch brush, and we have a clone stamp tool. So a little more powerful because you have a little more choice in On1. Luminar If you go up here where it says tools and click there, you'll see you have a crop tool, a free transform tool, which is kind of like a resizing tool that's different than a crop tool, hard to explain, but I do demonstrate it in my Mastering Luminar 2018 series. It has a clone stamp tool and erase tool. So similar tools to the other two, they do work a little bit differently in function. What it's been my finding, at least on my computer, that the tools in Luminar are a little bit slower than the tools in On1, and On1's tools are a little bit slower than the tools in Lightroom. So as far as performance is concerned, Lightroom's tools seem to work a little quicker on my computer. Of course, it may be different for your computer and your system. Another thing that is different between the three programs is effects. Now, all Luminar really is effects. If you click on the Add Filters button here, all these are different filters. And there's 50 different ones. And there really isn't any other module in Luminar. Everything is done through a filter. Even the raw develop filter, where you would set your white balance and adjust exposure, contrast, highlight, shadows, whites, blacks, add clarity to the image. All that is done with the raw develop filter. Filters, I believe, were first introduced by Nik Software several years ago. And I think it's kind of a more modern way to process an image. I wouldn't call it a better way necessarily, but it just seems to be more popular now with newer programs such as Luminar 2018. So you could add a filter. With On1 Photo RAW 2018, in the effects module, that's what you're doing. You're adding filters. And you can see I added that dynamic contrast filter to the image. Now they have less filters in On1 than they do in Luminar 2018. I'm not sure how many are here. I believe there are 50 in Luminar 2018 here. Very quickly, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 times 2, 24. So we have 24 filters in On1 Photo RAW 2018, with some of them with very similar functionality to the filters that are in Luminar. Lightroom, on the other hand, no filters at all. This is the more conventional way to process an image. You go through these panels. You have the basic panel. Close down that gradient for a minute. You have the basic panel, tone curve panel, HSL panel. All these are filters in the other programs. The split toning panel achieve the same thing. They're just not in that kind of filter setup that these programs have. So effects and filters are kind of different between the three programs. And finally, the last thing that is different is lens corrections. If we go to Lightroom and we click on the Lens Corrections tab, you have a couple checkboxes. It's kind of make it automatic. You can click that Remove Chromatic Aberration checkbox and Enable Profile Corrections. And usually, at least in my experience, when you enable profile corrections by clicking that checkbox, Lightroom will find your lens automatically. And if it doesn't, you could drill down to find it. You could go to the manufacturer of the lens, the model of the lens, and it will automatically load the profile for that model. If you don't like the correction it did, or if it didn't find the correction, you can come in and manually adjust the distortion and the vignetting of your lens. You can go over to the Manual tab, and you could affect the pincushion or barrel distortion with the slider there. You also could manually defringe any chromatic aberration that you may have with your lens with this, and there's some tools, advanced tools, to help you defringe. The eyedropper will help you defringe an image, and you also could hold in the Alt key and different things, and I cover this in videos on how to do it. So there's some advanced functionality here. You also then have the vignetting and midpoint sliders there, where you could help eliminate that. So overall, the lens correction tools in Lightroom are pretty advanced, and there's a lot there. There's a lot of different profiles. They have a lot of different lens profiles in their database. On1 is very similar. That's get rid of this for a minute and get rid of that. Let's go over to the Develop module, and we're going to go to the Lens Corrections tab. And you can see it's kind of laid out a little bit similarly. First of all, you have this lens profile. You could click on Auto, and hopefully it will automatically find the lens you used. Now, this was shot with a Nikon 200 to 500 millimeter lens, and you can see it found that it's a Nikon lens, but it does not have a profile for the 200 to 500. And it's been my experience personally, and from when I've talked to other people, that the lens database in Lightroom is larger than the lens database in On1. On1, of course, is a newer product, so hopefully it comes along. So I don't have a lens profile for this lens, so I can come in here. It has the manual controls, and I could adjust the pincushion or barrel distortion with that. I could get rid of any fringing. The advanced tool, or the advanced chromatic aberration tools in Lightroom, you could click the box and it does it automatically. It has that eyedropper to help you. It has a lot of other aids by holding in the Alt key I mentioned, and different things you could do. Here it's all manual. There's no automatic chromatic aberration. They call it color fringe removal in On1 Photo RAW 2018. And then you have these fall off sliders and midpoint. That's to get, again, for lenses that may darken the edge of your image or something like that. So that's lens correction. Again, On1's a newer program. They're adding a lot to it in every update. So hopefully they'll add a lot more to their database. Now, with Luminar, they have lens corrections, and I should have said at the beginning, there might be some disparity between the Windows version and the Mac version of all these softwares. It's been my experience that the Luminar 2018 has a larger disparity between the Mac version, which you see here, and the Windows version. On1 Photo RAW has some slight disparity between the two, and Lightroom has none that I know of. So just beware of that. But as far as lens corrections are concerned, in the Mac version of On1 Photo RAW, or on Luminar 2018, if you click right here on Lens, you'll get the auto corrections, and it is automatic. You could just click Lens Distortion, and it might take a while to correct, and then Chromatic Aberration and Defringe, and it will automatically do it. Now, the downside to this is it did it, but did it really find your lens? It doesn't show any lens information here, so I'm not sure it actually is correcting for my Nikon. I think it was a 14 to 24, or maybe it was a 24 to 70 lens that I used here. I'm not sure if it actually corrected for that specific lens properly. So it is automatic, but there's that little bit of issue there. You also, though, could just come in with the sliders and manually do the pincushion and barrel distortion and de-vignette the image if there is some darkening of the corners or outside of the frame. So all there, there is, that from what I understand and what I've been told by Skylum Software is they're actually working on this module a lot. So hopefully there'll be upgrades there as well. So that's 5 differences between those 3 pieces of software. That's, of course, Luminar 2018, On1 Photo RAW 2018, and Lightroom Classic CC. In a few days, I'll do another video, and we'll talk about a few more of the differences. Thank you, everyone that watches my videos. I truly do appreciate it. I'll talk to you guys soon.